Yeah, sure.
We are live.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. And it is yet another podcast from the Fogsi Gyan Pravah. It's 10th of August and it's scheduled. I'm bound to do a podcast on the every 10th on behalf of the Imaging Science Committee. And I take my pleasure to welcome my dear president and dear friend, Dr. Sunita Tandulwadkar. Gyan Pravah is the brainchild of a genius, Dr. Sunita, who has engineered this podcast series very, um, thoughtfully, talking on women's health, cutting across diverse subjects, and giving all of us an opportunity to interact with celebrated speakers and guests. So, welcome, Dr. Sunita, for this podcast today.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you. Thank you so much. And welcome, Arvinderji, for our Foxy platform. It's an honor to be here, and you are most welcome. This
Thank you very much. The
every
pleasure
day
is
at 8 p.m. from 29 January we have, and now we are 190 plus podcast. As Nina said, the diverse topics we covered with diverse personalities from various fields, and it has become one of the most enriching program of our year. Every chairperson has been given a particular date, so every month on 10th Nina will be there doing the podcast with something academic, non-academic, anything. I suppose today with you here she will be speaking a lot on a woman health and the other issues. So it's one of the program I look forward. It's not so easy to join every day at 8 p.m, but more and more we are evolving, meeting so many personalities nowadays. Even I am eager to join at 8 o'clock to meet the personality and to listen to them, and it's one of the best, and it opens your eyes. We are always in our field, we talk only with our colleagues, and here with we are getting to meet so many personalities, and you realize there is a huge work to do from different angles with the same topic on women health. I'm sure it will be one of the best podcast of yours, Nina. Thank you always for coming out with the wonderful podcast, Good Thinking. Nina is a very dear friend. Initially, we used to be awkward to have in a different position of chairperson and president. I'm never used to listening word madam from Nina. Nina is my friend for decades. So that friendship is more valuable as well for me. Thank you so much, Nina. And I'm sure once you introduce the Arvinderji, our protocol is I'll be leaving to both of you to have a wonderful dialogue and we'll listen from the viewers link.
sure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sunita. It's indeed always a pleasure to have you introduce us and sort of grace this podcast and always, inspire us. Thank you very much once again. So, good evening, friends, once again. Women are complex and multifaceted individuals, in that this has been endorsed by many poets, writers, including Shakespeare. Their illnesses are unique and diverse, and some of them have a psychological and an emotional background. As doctors, gynecologists, surgeons, we do treat their diseases, but do we treat them holistically and do we treat this woman? Certainly, they need a psychotherapist at some point in time, a psychologist who guides them through their sufferings, handholds them. And to allude on the psychological aspect of women's health, I have none other than a celebrated guest, uh, very well known in her field, Dr. Arvinder Singh. She is the founder director for the Center of Well-being at the prestigious Ashoka University. She has many accolades to her credit. She's had a PhD from UK. She's a champion of women's health. She has experience of working both in India and UK. She has traveled and lectured across the globe, invited as speaker nationally, internationally. She works very closely for the UN agencies and is an adjunct faculty to IIM Ahmedabad. So, welcome, Dr. Arvinder, to this yet another podcast in which we will cover psychological aspects of women's health.
Thank
And
you,
so,
Dr. Nina. But before you even ask me something, I want to really thank you and congratulate both of you, Dr. Sunita and Dr. Nina, for this initiative. Because, the model of looking at any kind of aspect of illness for women is just it's so diagnostic that nobody really bothers about the psychological aspects. So I'm very excited to really
Absolutely.
talk about the psychological aspect.
Psychological aspect, the mental health of a lady. In fact, this year we are doing a publication on mental health at a perimenopausal age, which is so often neglected. And
Yes.
Dr. Jaideep Malhotra is leading that publication of ours and project. So I'm so happy that Nina has chosen this topic to be, spoken, introduced, reheard, and reheard again and again.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy your podcast.
Yeah. So I think if I address you as Dr. Arvinda rather than Dr. Singh, is it okay with you, Dr. Arvinda? I think
I would just say Arvinder is just fine,
yeah. Thank you so much for giving me this liberty. So let's go talking about, it's I would say a life cycle approach. We these women in the younger years, and as gynecologists, we see them across the lifespan from adolescent once the pediatricians hand them over to us, and then we go beyond menopause in the geriatric ages, and that's how we come across women in different ages. So, just to begin with and set the ball rolling, how do you define the connection between the physical health and the mental well-being in women? Do you think there is a lot of connect as women evolve and they grow in the ages moving ahead in life?
Yeah, I think at men, women, everybody, there's a very definite connection between what happens in the mind and what happens in the body. So there have been innumerable researches on the mind-body connection because our thoughts really create, the whole kind of sense of well-being or illness in our bodies. And it's a very well-known fact. And I mean, of course, our culture has always talked about it, and I think the whole concept of psychosomatic diseases, the fact that they come across somatically but have a psychological origin, tells us how closely mind and body are connected. For women, it's actually even more special, right from a very young age, because more than just the physiological, it's also the way, the children are brought up. So what you do, what messages you give to the girls versus boys, and of course, as they grow, the way the bodies are, the sense of shame with the body, how we teach it, or what is dignity about. Look at a child as she grows, a little girl as she goes to school, and then from there, as she grows up and she's in that preteen kind of stage where the body is changing, where, and then she goes into the adolescence where there are trillion, neurons that are being formed. So she's thinking. There is a increased size in the brain, I mean, for both men and women. So she's really thinking as well, plus her physiology is changing. So there's a lot that's happening which impacts the body image, the self image, the confidence, and depending on what kind of messaging is coming from the family, from the parents, from the school, from the society, that actually creates the personality and the identity. So in those stages, I think, yes, we all know about the estrogen and the progesterone. And what am I telling you? You're the expert at it. But, not just the play of these hormones, but also the messages that you get. I mean, your menstrual cycle, is it celebrated culturally, or is it, a matter of shame? Is it a matter of fear? Are you sort of not asked to wear certain kind of clothes? There's so much of messaging around the society, which is very important. So I think I want to start really by saying that it's, yes, the hormonal changes are happening. Yes, there is more estrogen. Yes, sometimes, during the premenstrual stage, there are changes which leads to anxiety. And the PMS, I mean, we all talk about it and we all joke about it, but actually it's a very real thing. I mean, and you know that better than me, that really there is this play of hormones. There is an increased cortisol for some, and for some, the condition is very severe, leading to, a chunk of a month, a good part of a month in a stage where they're really grappling with this change in the body. And as we grow, pregnancy has its own set of what it does. You're growing up, the body image as what is, and the premium on looking youthful, on what beauty is, all of it, and what you've inherited in terms of your genetic pool, the color of your skin, the color of your eyes, your size, and look at the number of eating disorders that come with it. So there is a whole play of the mind and the body, which happens particularly more to women. I think we are more susceptible to it, we are more vulnerable. We're also very sensitive, but also very resilient. So we cope with all of those messaging along with the conundrum that the body is going through. So putting that together, and of course, I haven't even right now reached the perimenopausal and the menopausal stages, which has its own challenges. So, but to really answer your question, there is a very deep connection. And with every stage, there is an impact on the psyche of the woman. And that impact is not only hormonal, but also the psychosocial, the messaging and what's happening and what the culture tells you on how to be when you're in a particular stage, which is just a transition. There's just, there's a change in the body, there's transition. And there is, of course, there's lots of stuff happening in our bodies, but what messages are given, whether it's for your work life, whether it's for your growing as a young woman, what is the concept of beauty, what is your sexual identity, what is feminine all about. All of these definitions come together in a woman's life. Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you've really covered across. I'm sure in your experience over the years and seeing women across all ages, what is your experience about what are the most common psychological issues or challenges women come across, or they reach you or approach you across ages, right from their
Yeah.
adolescent years, or some common ones that you feel, yeah, they're very pertinent and it's something common, or for that matter, you could tell us the evolving trends because what you saw women 2 decades back may not be the kind of spectrum that you see women today. Of course, there is a lot of societal pressure, the way we're looking at the dynamics of our, well-being, not in terms of physical, but also economical well-being. So I think there's a very big transition. So how do you really see, and what do you see are the commoner challenges women see at ages or common problems they would approach you?
Great question. I think, the challenges really start when the child is little, a girl child. In the family, what they can do, cannot do. And I'm talking about, specifically in Asian cultures and, across the families, you'll see that the way, the kind of choices we allow the girl child to make versus the boy child. So the challenges emotionally, psychologically are those as well. Also the very classic ones you would have known on, who can go out at night and who cannot go out night and who's safe and who's unsafe and brother can do it but I can't do it, why can't I do it? So all of those questions, I think they are there, and at some level now, of course, it's changed since you say 2 decades. The needle has shifted quite a bit, but also, the kind of messages we had around what uh, what life would look like for you, what careers you could take. I mean, for example, uh, a few decades back in the era of our mothers, the very common careers, or maybe, a generation before us, the very common careers for women were always, a teacher, or, maybe some families allowed the women to be doctors and so on and so forth. But everything was around, what they could do in the home. And so you can be back on time, you can take care of children. So the larger purpose, it was always very confusing. And for girls that were very, very ambitious and very hardworking and very intelligent, there was always about there has to be a balance. You can't have both. And there are some very prominent figures also that constantly talk about this message of you can't have both. You either have a career or you have, a home life. And I seriously think that I don't think there is a choice of either or, really, in a sense. It's about uh, what really is the purpose, and what is your passion, what is your purpose, and your best gift is your resilience to really cope with both. And I know that from my life, and I'm sure you as a doctor, you're balancing your home, your medical profession, being there, the change agent, helping and saving lives, bringing beautiful lives into this world. And I think so the challenge is really about how does a child, as they grow, when they see others around them being given different messages. So I find that the stresses and anxieties increase because there is very little awareness about the bodies. Most of the parents don't want to tell their children. That has shifted now. I think the schools have also become proactive in giving the children some kind of, exposure to what sexual health is, what reproductive health is all about. Earlier, it was, it was always a matter of not having to speak about it. You had to figure it out somehow, to now openly talking. And then the norms have changed. The gender norms have changed. The requirement of sexuality, the permissiveness has changed. What you take care of the body, the messaging now is more about safety rather than a judgment, a moral judgment on whether or not, or even, if I really take it forward, it might sound a little bit, kind of provocative, but where were women even allowed to experience or talk about what pleasure was, or is? So there's a lot of shift now that's happening, but also the challenge comes because with that, when we've educated our women and we've sort of given them permission and held them all, I, I don't know whether we took the whole family along. So when you don't take the whole family along, there's a lot. There's a father, there's a brother, there's a grandfather, there's a husband, there's a, who's sort of confused. Even, I mean, I'm not here to diss men, but they're confused. They don't know, is this okay? Is this not okay? So they see their mothers in a particular way. And so, they're wondering. And unless that support is there, it becomes hard for women. So that is the challenge. The challenge that if a woman has gone too far, but the rest of the family still has that expectation from them, that becomes a bigger challenge psychosocially. And physiologically, we all know, because there are these, look at the social media, look at the kind of body images that they're throwing, look at the beauty industry, you know and so what it's doing is it's promoting a particular kind of look. So when you're in your 40s, you start getting things done to your face, to your looks, to your body. You So everybody seems to be having a perfect body, and everybody, it's like, so how do you do that? That kind of pressure, that is a challenge now. Ageism is a very big problem now. People are really, so it's like you're too old to do this, or you're too old to be running that fast, or being a certain way, or dressing a certain way. So those stereotypes are a big challenge for women. These stereotypes are much lesser for men. So if a woman is into that space, there is a lot more that she has to, go through. And really, and if she dresses a certain way, she's inviting or not. Men don't have to go through those challenges. So I find that the cultural, societal norms did not evolve at the same pace as the women, evolved. So that kind of discrepancy is a bigger challenge, which actually builds into all the social problems that we look around us. So the kind of not having to respect or talk about sexuality, not having open conversations about it, leads to the rise of crime against women, the violence against women that we see. So all of that are the bigger challenges right now for our young women, our daughters, our young people right now. The challenge is balancing your career with having to really see what is this biological clock that they talk about for women, especially. I mean, I have young girls in their late 20s talking about freezing eggs because careers are important. Or, I have young people, the double income, typically double income, no sex kind of families where infertility becomes an issue, where, I mean, look at the climate around us, the changes, what we are ingesting in our bodies. Not having a child is another issue because that's a part of how you evolve. So there's a lot of complexity. It's a lot of layers. It's very hard to, in a very linear way, say these are the 4 challenges that they're going through. But it's at every level, very subtly, there are challenges of really being yourself, establishing your identity, taking pride in who you are. It's always coming at a cost of a guilt or of some fear, or of some kind of uncertainty. So that's what I see women face as challenges a lot more.
And do you think that these kind of, emotional turmoils that go in a woman's mind are similar across, societies or developing worlds or the developed worlds or people in UK or US, or for that matter, they are across? Because it's at the end of the day, can't say a man's world, but women do face all these kind of struggling situations. So do you feel no, it in India we are more protected, or we feel no, we are more vulnerable? Because those are kind of thoughts that come to us. And I think that has a background when we look at
Yeah.
women with their diseases, and we'll talk of it a little later. So do you think that has a bearing, or should be affecting?
I would just sort of say that everywhere there would be a something. We can't compare. The way the presentations are a little different. But, so it may seem like women in the West, have a lot more freedom to certain things, which, yes, I mean, the laws are such. And, maybe the right to vote came, earlier there than wherever. But the fact is that uh, the challenges are there. So the vulnerabilities are there definitely. And the vulnerabilities are more, connected with safety, emotional and physical, both safety. And I would just put it in really that word. So it is there, but the way it presents itself is different. I mean, in India, for example, we also have a lot of protection of the family as you're growing up as a child. So there's a very huge support system. Look at us in India, when a woman delivers a child, typically, for about 40 days, the family will look after. So there's a lot of care that is being given to the woman, a lot of attention that is being given to the woman. And of course, pregnancy has its own, our little rituals are around that, which celebrate the woman, which may not be that pronounced, in other cultures. So there is a nice side to that, where your body gets time to heal and recoup and recover, but the challenges may be different. So and maybe we may have more challenges about or what you wear, what you don't wear, and what the body image is like. But of course, even the body image, the self-esteem, all these challenges are there across cultures for people, more for women, because there is always a thing of we have to catch up. And currently, I think now we always look at what is catch up about. What is this glass ceiling that you talk about for women? So, but it would be there I mean, that's my personal opinion, that it's there. I mean, I've worked in different cultures and I found that it shows up in different ways, but it's there. Some, it may be so subtle that it's hard to really sort of pick up unless it's nuanced. I mean, it's very nuanced, so sometimes you don't pick up, but it's there. It's not like it's not there. Yeah.
So as we're talking about, how women are focusing their careers, taking, their, I would say, personal or reproductive, self, giving more priority to their career, and they're oriented. More and more women are trying to sort of look at the Mr. Right No, but for their big packages that I can chase. So we're getting to see women at, trying to think of pregnancy or motherhood at a later years, and getting, maybe this is, I would say, not infertility or delaying fertility, but certainly there's a rise in infertility, and we see the numbers of infertile couples seeking for parenting increase. And infertility definitely has a psychological and emotional backdrop, because certainly they are depressed. These couples have been trying, and the decisions may be late, but then they're suffering from diseases which also have an emotional or psychological background, like PCOS, endometriosis, and we do have. And that's where we realize that a psychotherapist and a psychological support is very important. So, how do you see that in infertility? What should be the things where we as clinicians are busy? We have limited time because we have to see so many couples in a clinic in a set time. But I feel that they need more time beyond the illness that they're suffering, beyond the problem. So, what would you think would be something that we should draw our attention to, and how should we take these couples further?
I think, infertility is, like, as you pointed out, it's a very real issue right now because, and let's just look at sociologically. When two people decide to marry, it's a very natural thing after some time for them to want to have a child, because that's what, family is defined as. Okay, there are a few couples now that would say we don't want human children, we want pet babies, and so on and so forth. But that's different. But in a way, it still is about family. So people who want to have a child of their own, and of course, people when man and woman both are in they're both ambitious. They both have very challenging kind of professions where a lot of their time is needed. initial years are a lot about, building careers. There's a lot of thought that goes into how do we really manage this? Who takes a break? How do we take a break? And of course, a woman's body goes through a huge amount of change. And you know that, stress is the biggest enemy of fertility, and whether it's a male or a female. So we know that the sperms and the eggs both suffer when there is a high cortisol level, and and the lower estrogen, and so on and so forth. So and of course anxiety and stress, which is like right now across the spectrum for everybody, that is the biggest killer. Our professions are such that there is very little security. So in order to keep your jobs, in order to keep your lifestyle, in order to enjoy some of the things that you enjoy in life, you have to continue to do that. So those stresses take such a toll that the joy of parenthood becomes a very calculated kind of plan. So the joy of suddenly discovering that you're going to have a baby, to celebrating, to is what will happen to my career, who takes a break, what kind of help. And now, of course, classically, now there are very few joint families. So even the childcare and what it looks like changes. Now, because of our careers, the women are now, even the marriage age or even the partnership age, I don't want to get into that space, but that is also changing. That's also moving up. So that also creates a lot of issues about fertility. So it has, and psychologically, when you're trying to have a child and you can't have a child, it really impacts your identity to the core. It impacts your self concept, your self esteem, your confidence in yourself. And at many levels, it's as if you feel incomplete or invisible because, again, that's a need of yours. That's a very emotional, psychological need of yours to have a child together. Also, as it said, that the families need to evolve in a certain way. So it's a very natural progression to have a child. And most people have a lot of biases and stigma about having biological children. So they do want their child to be, their own, and so on, and not just somebody that is, adopted, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving further, if you look at the infertility industry, particularly the IVF and the assisted reproductive techniques, ART, there's a big boom. I think we've swelled in numbers, and I think it's a need of the hour. We do not have yet many, facilities to provide these couples, help in terms of, the kind of technology that's evolving with IVF and test tube babies. But do you think that we do say, they need psychological support? Do you think there could be some way of sort of helping them? As clinicians, we could give them some kind of advisors to, or some coping strategies, as I would put it, to sort of help them look, these are, or maybe you could red flag that these are things which you could point out. Yeah, they don't open out with the clinician yet, and they would open out with you. So do you think it's kind of necessary that these couples go through a psychological support or a psychotherapist at every meet, or do you think there could be some kind of strategies which we could sort of advise them, which would help them cope up their anxiety while they're going through an IVF cycle? And we know that every IVF cycle or every test tube baby cycle will not give a baby. So there'll be couples who will just make it in most cases by 30 to 50%, and the rest would still have to try another cycle. So it's an emotional but a financial drain as well. So do you think there could be some ways that we could help these couples, or some strategies that would help us help
I
them
think
better?
it is important that we that when people plan, to have assistance in in having a child, like the IVF process or any other IUI or adoption or whatever, whichever way you choose. With IVF, it would be very different because things are done to your body. So there is a lot of hormones that go in your body. It changes your mood. It just makes you very crotchety. And you also know the rate of success in that. So preparing the person, because you go with all the hope, thinking here is this magic and this will give me a baby, but only to realize this is no magic. And in a way it is, yes, it is a miracle and it is not a miracle. But the fact of how do we really prepare these couples that not everything may lead to, not every cycle may lead to a success. And the second bit is about not just that the every cycle is leading to success, but what if it doesn't happen, then what? And also now there is surrogacy as well, so while we are talking, just this rent a womb, psychologically, all of these things, first thing that comes is, I am not enough. Okay, that sense of failure, that sense of, so, and there's a grief around that. Now these are emotions that I don't think any medical doctor is qualified to look at. So before anybody goes through that, I highly recommend that please go for some sort of therapy to understand. I mean, yes, you might just Google it all. You might, chat GPT might be your latest friend to tell you what happens, and your medical doctor will give you the medical advice on what it is. But I think it is important to psychologically see, before you've come to an IVF, there would have been a very long period of just the two of you, just leading your life the way you want, having your freedom. And suddenly you're preparing to have another person in your life. So you better be prepared for what that entails. Okay, it's not about sacrifice. I don't believe in that. It's about something that you want very badly. That's a child. And what are the kind of adjustments that you're both willing to make for it? And then it does not seem like an adjustment. It's just like, just reorienting yourself. The second thing is, if it's an IVF or any other assisted way, then you have to prepare your body, because it goes through some really strong hormonal injections. They create a havoc in your body and your mood. I do know that some of my clients have sort of told me how they don't want to talk to anyone, they get very moody, and they can't tell their employers that they're going through something like this, because they don't want too many people to know. And it's your little secret sometimes, and that's fair enough, it's your right to tell or not. And then month after month, when you're taking those injections for a few months before this happens, what happens to your body, the size, internally what's happening. Maybe there's your skin breaks out, maybe you don't like what you see, and all of that. And then if it does not result into you having a baby, then that's another kind of grief that you may go through. And people who have failed IVF cycles, they have grief like as if they have really lost a child, because it's the possibility of a child that they lost. Now, all these are things that the medical doctors don't work with. And I think it's very important to work with that. Another aspect is, you'll see that now there are a lot of perinatal classes also, so prenatal classes as well. So where where both partners are going. I think because it's like, things that you saw very naturally 2 or 3 decades back are something that you have to be trained in. And I strongly feel that, there is enough research that says that. And I think even our culture has talked about, there are stories and stories in our epics about the environment for the child while the child is still in the mother's womb is as important, probably more important than when the child comes out of the womb. So who talks about that? Not really. We only focus on the nutrition. But what about the emotional, psychological nutrition? Do we even talk about it? And why is, not being able to have a child, the kind of judgment there is on it, the bias, the stigma there is on it. So people don't want to talk about it. And I think that this is the place where counseling or a psychotherapist's role is very important, because they just help you see that you are more than your hormones. They help you see two levels. One is that it's not your fault, because people think it's their fault if they can't have a baby. It's not your fault, really. It's nobody's fault. It is just what it is. And what you can do is just look at all the opportunities that are there, what the possibilities that are there. And of course, always focus on a healthy lifestyle right from the beginning. The choices we make are healthy, not just so that we can have babies, but with whatever happens, we have the resilience to cope with that situation. When we have a baby, what do? We don't have a baby, what do we do? And how do we cope with that mindset? So preparing the mindset before we prepare, the body is actually more important. And again, there is so much research which says that the mindset impacts the result of the medication as well, right from long-term illnesses as well. So You may have seen, I can see you're nodding vigorously, that,
Yeah, and I want to really share experiences. You really beautifully, Dr. Arvind, brought these things. And I think when we see these couples sitting outside, praying, and I also see that they see in each embryo that comes a potential baby. So for them, especially couples who, with an IVF cycle going, had a pregnancy, has a miscarriage. So those who have repeated pregnancy losses, which we call as recurrent miscarriages, or those who have recurrent implantation failures, I think the turmoil is far more than just the hormones and the medicines and the treatment. And I truly endorse it that there are couples who come to us and then they would go follow a soothsayer, go follow, pray, meditate. I think that's practically mind hacking. So I
Yeah.
think they've sort of got detached because at the end of the day, I think these anxiety plays such a devastating role on your actual well-being. And we do see that they never had good embryos and they come back with pregnancy. And there are some who have wow embryos and yet we don't see a pregnancy happen. So I think that that conflict that goes in our minds is beyond to, sort of, so you alluded it so beautifully. And I think let's move further from infertility to pregnancy. You rightfully touched that pregnancy is such a joyous moment for some, the 9 months, but not for the others. And then the body shape, as you described. What do you think are the kind of, women who would come during pregnancy? And I would say again in the postnatal or the puerperium and the postnatal period, when they really, some of our patients have postpartum blues. Do you think there could be something that could be identified? Should we treat them well before they're moving to childbirth and sort of give them a lot of counseling and support? How important is this when it comes to pregnancy and afterwards?
I think extremely important, because the whole I think in handling anything, awareness is the key. So it's you, when you're aware, you're sort of prepared. You sort of expect. Maybe I hear people saying, "Oh, I expected, but not this kind of onslaught." But the bottom line is some kind of preparation is important. Now, let's really look at the psychological impact during pregnancy. Of course, there are hormonal surges. There's a lot of estrogen, progesterone. There's oxytocin happening. Very happy, there's an increased sense of emotional bonding. The couple is bonded, the family is very invested, you're the star, and but there is also the anxiety about motherhood. Will my baby be okay? 10 little fingers, 10 little toes is every expectant mother's sort of wish and fear. And also the body changes, the size changes, the clothes don't fit you. How do you look? There are also jokes around that, right? Literally your center of gravity shifted, so can you see the psychological impact of that? And so there's a strong shift in the identity, from being an individual to being a mother, as someone's mother. That responsibility is very empowering. For some it's very destabilizing. For some it can be very scary. So also the confidence can rise, because of course the hormones are doing their job, but also it's like a sense of achievement, like we've done it. I'm going to be a mother. And there can also be a dip because of the fears, like, will everything go okay? Will I be a competent parent? Will I be able to manage or even hold the baby? Who's going to do it for me? Especially for the ones who have next to nothing support. Now the baby is born. Okay, let's go to the postpartum phase. Of course, the first thing that happens is a sharp hormonal crash. Okay. Now, especially the estrogen, it goes very, very low, and that makes you very emotionally very fragile. So you'll have a lot of crying bouts, and maybe, there's a postpartum depression. Of course, every young mother will tell you the sleep deprivation, and that actually, the sleep deprivation is the bottom line for the messing of your well-being. Anytime anybody asks me the parameters, I say the first one is sleep, and then food, and then some exercise and routine and so on. But sleep is the first parameter, and sleep deprivation actually really leads you to becoming more irritable, maybe very, very fragile, crying at the drop of a hat. Also that huge sense of responsibility for this baby, and a lot of self-doubt. So this becomes the psyche of a young mother. And of course, look at the body, what it goes through. There are stretch marks, there's loose skin, there's weight retention, there's also, the pressure, the societal pressure to bounce back. Again, the social media, the way they show oh, this one in such and such time is back in shape and back to work. And that's a lot of pressure for a woman whose body can't take it. And of course, the identity crisis here is very, very common because balancing your old self with this new self, this new motherhood demands, that becomes a bit of a thing. So the postpartum blues are all about a combination of all of this. And so, the confidence may also plummet sometimes because your physical recovery may be slow, or if you're breastfeeding, there are struggles in your breastfeeding or something. That might, also, or if you have less support systems, or, so that may affect your sense of self-worth, when you're not able to balance all of that, or if you don't have a supportive partner who just expects you to do all of this and plus carry on with your role. One other thing that I see with the working women is that there's this big fear of I'm left behind. My colleagues are running, especially ambitious young women, who really want to do so much. Their fear is, oh my God, I'm on this maternity leave, uh, but I'm going to be left behind because all my other colleagues will jump and get ahead. And then of course you come to the stage when the baby is young and you're back to work. You have some other, you're always thinking of your child, is my child safe? So you're constantly kind of really your thoughts are going from one side to the other, two different directions, and balancing that can sometimes be frustrating and sometimes be a big challenge. So that's what happens to a woman, in the postnatal phase. And of course, the perimenopause and menopause has its own challenges, which I know we know about.
So I think with all the kind of way you're alluding to, I think for us as clinicians, it's very important that when they're moving ahead in pregnancy, they do have a psychologist consult happening while they're, so it's kind of preparing them well in advance. I know one consult may not be. I think it should be serially as they come to us and visit us for their antenatal checkups. We must sort of get this kind of, advice or sort of advise them and take help from a psychologist, even though they are well prepared, they're mentally fit. But I think this goes a long way. So
It
let's
would
move
be,
on to the,
Dr. Nina, I would also say here that, not just a psychologist, sometimes just having a support group is important.
yes,
So
yes,
talking
some
to
kind of,
other people who've gone through those experiences is important, or other people who are going through that experience. So you feel I'm not alone, you know, or I'm not a
yeah.
freak thinking like that. Others are also feeling. So I really don't want to really promote that, okay, always go to a psychologist or
No,
a
but
counselor, but, like also talk to other people.
yeah. So, but you know what? There are like what we started doing in our hospital. There are special situations where the mother's going through a condition called FGR or a small baby, or there's a baby who's going to come premature or something where the baby is going to need a long stay in the nursery. So those mothers we do give special attention because her coping abilities will not be somebody who sees a healthy baby coming to her lap. She'll have to spend more time waiting for the baby and all those kind of things. And there where we really get our counselors and our neonatologists sort of insist. And I think your thought is very nice. A kind of support groups. And while women wait in the antenatal clinics, they form their own WhatsApp groups. So I
Yeah.
think that way is a kind of a good social connect. So I
Yes.
think let's move to the other phase, which is again a very, very challenging phase, and that's the midlife crisis. I know the hormones are again swingy. They're like the estrogens are going down. She's 45, running towards 50. She's chased her career. She's probably achieved or she's yet to make it to the top. And then menopause is around. Periods getting erratic. She's getting mood swings, hot sweat, hot flushes, and that's what we call perimenopause. And
Yeah.
so she's not prepared and she's like coping. And of course, the glow of the skin going. So, where do you think is the challenge here? Because this is another spectrum where I'm sure you do get women coming to you for consults, for advices. And how do you think we can help them to cope up with this kind of a normal physiological situation in their life?
Yeah. I think, one is the mood swings. The other is, there are memory lapses that are, sort of associated with the hormonal crashes that keep happening, the fluctuations actually. Menopause, perimenopause is more about fluctuation than crashes. And I think, the way the skin changes, the hair color, the texture of the hair, the midsection that's going, thicker, the girth becomes thicker. So all of that, your sense of self actually, this transition from what should I say, from fertility towards non-fertility, or, like, I mean, that sounds drastic, but it's kind of that, it can sometimes spark a lot of, doubt and reflection on aging, um, and life achievements, purpose, you start thinking about along those lines. Also, the fact that people around you start treating you differently. They start saying things about, okay, in your 50s. And I mean, even though you say, okay, I heard something very recently, sexy at 60 or something like that, that's there, but that's like really trying to boost up and say and message it like that. But if menopause is going to be stigmatized so much, the confidence is going to fall. Because again, I'm just going to come again to the norm of what a body should look like. So there's a lot of premium on, oh, you don't look like 50. I would just sort of say that what happens inside your body, if your internal organs and your body does not age, faster than the chronological age, that's a great thing that's happening. But more premium has to be paid on, has to be put on fitness rather than just the external beauty and what it looks like and what the standards of those beauty are. Because I know that the social media is pretty much full of, critique on certain ways, and there's always a exaggerated form of what a person should look like and how younger is better. More for women than for men. I mean, that's an established fact, just much more for women. So I think the movement has to be from, being, instead of critique, to really compassion. So because you want to go through so much, it is, again, people don't talk about it, but really see it as just another phase in life. And the fact that nothing really, I mean, it's not like overnight something has changed, but just like from primary school, you go to middle school, and middle school to high school, and every stage has its own challenges and its own, gifts. So the same way, this stage of life as well, perimenopause to menopause, has its own gifts, and it has its own challenges as well. And nothing comes, so one of the things is we don't let our confidence go low. So the sense of purpose does not have to come only from your work or only from your home. You have to have your own hobbies. You have to have your own, that inner child in you that stays alive. And that's what really keeps you going, and have your own support system. Your own spaces, which are not just the family, not just really your work, but also more about, what else you can do. What is the purpose? How can you give back to the society or anywhere else? But basically have your tribe, you know.
So would you think, how would you kind of give kind of some kind of advices to women? How could they cope up and how could they come out of these? Because there are some who would definitely need hormones for their, vasomotor symptoms, for their, of course, sex is not that pleasurable and all, but somewhere do you think you could give them some psychological support? And what advice would you give to women at this age to be better prepared and, face it better?
I think it's the first thing I would say is that, just don't go by someone else's story, the story that was handed to you, that you're a woman, you be this, and, this is how you behave, this is how you stand, this is how you sit, look, this is the ideal standards of beauty or intelligence or your role as a woman or a mother and all of that. And I think whatever story the world may have handed you, I think now the pen is in your hand. So make sure that the next word, the next sentence, the next whatever you want to write in the story of your life is just what you want to do. It's your resilience. And write with this, maybe the resilience is your ink. And write the story which is full of passion, full of purpose, and full of joy. And I think that's what it is. And I'm trying to recall this very nice quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, which talks about the beauty of a woman. Well, let me recollect. The future actually belongs, yes, that's what it says. The future belongs to those who believe in really the beauty of their dreams and not necessarily the external beauty. So really, dream, believe in the beauty of your dreams, and everything else that happens in the body is just, it's just a matter of an everyday practice. It's just transition. So if you do not put too much of attention on that, but put more attention on what your story is, what you want to do, what is joy in your life, what is connectedness in your life, what is resilience in your life, that's what makes your life flourish. And that, I think, that's what we are born for in this world, to flourish.
So nicely that you've given some advices, some way to cope from menopause and menopause symptoms. I think we've really talked. Believe we've talked for the last 50 minutes, and I think time's flown. But I do this to all my guest speakers. I know we get academicians, we get beautiful people who are leaders themselves in their own self, in their own life. I know you handle a lot of students and you have diverse students. We also see medical students, young, budding, brilliant people who make it to universities like Ashoka and medical schools. I would always want, my speakers to give something like, how do you think we can help the younger generation to be leaders in their self, to be individuals in their own right to kind of lead. Because I believe that there is something like scholastic leaders and who really get the achievers as 99%. And some advice that you would give to people in the younger generation who are building in their career paths and they're sort of stepping up the ladder in jobs or in their academic, you know, careers. How do you sort of give some advice to be a leader?
Yeah. I think I would encourage people, since we're talking about women specifically, young women specifically, to really allow themselves that time for reflection. Because it's again, I believe a lot in stories and narratives. I believe in the fact that, whatever we are, that's a narrative that is set by, where we grew up, what our life experiences are, who our parents were, what were their belief systems, what kind of society. So we may have grown, and till a certain age, we had no control over that. That was what safety looked like. But to really think that someone else will look after your well-being is actually, it's an illusion. So rather than deluding yourself that somebody else will take care of you, you take care of you. And I think not just you take care of you, you take care of everything around you, not by being a martyr, not by sacrificing anything, but actually really believing that you deserve it. And coming from that space of that you deserve it, reflect and see. When I say spend time in reflection, reflect to see what really is your purpose. What is it that you would like to do in this world? And everything comes, work everything around it. Most of us, we want to be like someone else. So instead of that comparison of I want to be like X, like Y, you may admire many qualities in many people, but you are very unique. And I think your life's journey or story or narrative has to be to really unravel that uniqueness. Because, somebody once said that if you don't tell your story, someone else will tell your story, and that won't be cool. So I would just say in your life as a leader, as a human, as a change agent, whatever you want to call yourself, just please make sure that whatever is it that you do, it comes from a space of believing in yourself. I think that's what we as women really need. Believe in ourselves and believe that we deserve everything, and also know that we are resilient enough, we can do it. So that ink of resilience, just put it in the pen of life and just go write that chapter in your life that you want to.
Thank you for those pearls of wisdom. I think, Sharvinder, these will be something which, when people will be watching us and when we'll be kind of having more views, will really be enlightened, because these are some of the steps which really help women go forward. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you. And I think we look forward to more and more, kind of discussions and sort of talks that we have with you, and take it further from the kind of
Thank you.
journeys
Thank
in
you
women's
so
life. Thank you anyway. Thank you so much. It was a
Thank you
pleasure.
so
Thank
much
you.
for this opportunity, Dr. Nina. I think it is fantastic that we've at least started opening the conversations about, women and women's health. And I think congratulations for doing that. And thank you for this invite. Be
Thank
well.
you. Thank you. Good night. Good
Good
night. Bye.
night.
Pradeep, it's done. Pradeep.